Hello there, listeners. Welcome to Startup Kitchen Talk, where we discuss startup apprentices becoming master chef. The weather outside is complicated, sometimes sunny, sometimes terrible. April, they call it. And you know what it's also April-like? Startup life. Sometimes sunny, sometimes shitty. And here to talk about it is the CEO of Europe's biggest accelerator startup wise guys, Cristobala Alonsa. Welcome.
Hello. How are you? I like the idea about the complicated month. So,
Complicated month,
I can see that.
Yeah, before we started shooting, we discussed hiking, and we have the startup similarities everywhere. Mm-hmm. You can see the weather, or you can,
It's complicated, right? So yeah. Like a startup life is complicated.
What do you do in Prague, Alonso?
Actually, funny enough, I worked here about 21 years ago. Mm-hmm. I used to be part of Oscar, and then it became Vodafone. So I had a team of 25 people working for me, mm-hmm. and we kind of decided that we needed to catch up. So we tried already last year to do a get-together. And this year I was visiting about two months ago, one of our LPs, and kind of running into a couple of my former colleagues. I said, guys, let's set up a date. So we set up this weekend as the catch-up date. So there is about 6-7 of us flying over from other places in Europe, and then picking up with our entire tech team and doing a bit of get-together for the good old times. So, it's good to catch up with people.
So you work for Oscar.
Yeah,
I remember now Vodafone, but their signature color is still red.
It's still red.
And your signature color of Startup Wise Guys is
so don't make the connection, because actually but it is interesting because I learned during Oscar times. We have the first CEO in Oscar was Carla, and she was this brand really obsessed person, and mostly branding from the internal point of view. So I think this whole always take the color, take the brand to the next level in your company. I think it was one of the lessons that I learned from her. Ended up being also red, but I'm being in turtle blue. I'm being in green in my previous startup. But yeah, I think we have taken red to the next level. I think she will be quite proud of how we have been using red as a color in the company.
And so you work corporate, then you work startup. Like, do you miss anything about the corporate living?
I don't think it's about missing. I know there's a lot of people who says you can only do one thing or the other, or once you down this one, you cannot go back. I disagree. I think it's true that I always take corporate roles about even private equity companies, restructuring a company. So always a crisis mode or something that needed, let's come in and change something. So it was never the boring 1% improvement for the next 10 years. Let's call it this way. But I've done it 4 times now. Go a startup, go back to corporate, a startup, go back to corporate. So to me, you just need to go to the right challenge. It's not something that you miss or not. But it's true, obviously, that the level of ownership over my own agenda and what I say and what I don't say, I think I will be having difficulties if I will be right now in management and corporate to go back to this is the corporate line, don't say anything else, this is the agenda, this is what they tell you it has to be. So I think there's this level of freedom, of ownership of your own freedom that I think becomes more and more valuable as you're growing up, right? So
once you go red, you can always go red again.
Yes, you can always go red again. Passion can never go out of fashion, right? So I always said that.
Let's rhyme till the end. No, sorry, I can't do that. But startup wise guys, you are, you work with startup. You're a guy. So are you wise as well?
I'm getting older, so hopefully that comes with a bit of wisdom. I will say that the wisdom probably comes from somebody was asking me how many startups you still see every year. I would say I'm talking between 500 to 600 startups yearly still. So I think the wisdom comes from observation, comes from having invested in 400 plus startups, being part of the founders' lives, the different cycles. And I think, we're lucky enough to be in the journey with some of them for even 10 years. So you're really seeing the human evolution beyond the founder evolution. So I think that gives you at least a lot of observations that you can share, that you can, I don't know, people like to make mistakes no matter what you tell them. But I think you can actually try to make sure that they understand the game. I think I would say the rule for me is make sure that they understand the game they're playing and the stage they're playing, then they will have to make the decisions themselves, right? So I think in that sense, I would call it, between wise and experience. I don't know which one sounds better, but it's not old because that sounds bad, right? So when it starts going, you're very experienced. Okay, I'm getting older, and they're just being very polite with me. Right? So I would say yes, there is wisdom on the number of people, observation startups we have seen over the years, and what you learn from them.
If you see 500 to 600 startups per year, is there still something that can surprise you?
Yes, I would say I think every founder surprises you. At the end of the day, we are in early stage, and of course, it's good to see sometimes the new technology and what now AI can do. That's all fine, but I think you're always looking at the founder, and I think every founder relationship, every founder is unique. So I think you always interested. Of course, you see the patterns. Oh, the typical founder that thinks that blah 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 blah. But I will say that you continuously meet people that you find, wow, that's a very interesting founder to work with, right? And I think those are the ones that click right away. Said, we want to work with this founder, right? So I think that keeps happening. I think there is you never get bored of meeting new founders that really want to do something new, right? Innovation wise, it's true that maybe you find 5, 6 teams every year that say like, wow, that can be really big. The rest you just said, okay, this
That's
could be
very positive still.
Yeah, the rest can be this could be a great company, right? And then you but this thing that, wow, that can be really big and that's a really good team. I mean, it happens 5, 6 times a year, I would say, but of course it keeps happening.
It's still very positive. So you are accelerator, you are an investor. So at what stage do you jump in the startup life?
We jump early, very early. It's true that between the post-COVID, the fact that accelerators move online for the majority of the time, suddenly open up to deal with way more mature founders. Because, in the past, you will take a founder, come for 20 weeks to Vilnius or to Tallinn or to Copenhagen. A guy on his 40 with 2 kids, they're like, I'm not going to move 20 weeks anywhere, right? When you're running, you say, we're going to be working together for 20 weeks, but you're going to come for a couple of weeks or 3 weeks. We even get people from Australia, people from Chile. So I think the globality has increased and sometimes the stage has increased. Second one is the last 2-3 years, with the crisis going on, there is way less early stage investors. In many countries, angel investors have disappeared. So suddenly, we have been seeing latest
all over the world?
All over the world. Of course, EU or near EU is still, I would say, 60-70% of what we do. But we see more and more on the global basis. So I would say we still like to be first investor. What we have seen is becoming the first international investor. So companies will come with some sales, with already the first local investors.
So they have product.
Yeah. I would say we're an accelerator. To accelerate, you don't have a product, you cannot accelerate, right? So maybe in cybersecurity, we are sometimes pre-products because of the nature. It takes 4 years to really get something going, and it's a different. In defense, the same thing. Sometimes sustainability is also the products are very heavy. But I will say that our core is when the companies are starting to sell, and we can really work about how can we accelerate the sales machine, right? I think that's what we are good. So 5K, 10K, how can we take it to 30, to 40, to 50? How can we systematize that? And how can we go more international, more global? I think those are the 2 things that we really do well with the founders.
You mentioned cybersecurity and defense. Are those verticals that you are now focusing on based on the situation in Europe?
Well, now everybody does defense, which is very funny. Funny in the way like you've seen these people evolution mentally.
Yeah.
Not that it's funny that we have to, because we have to in defense. We've been investing in cybersecurity since 2017. Actually, we just did our first exit. We had a Turkish company that was our first investment in cyber, and they just exited Trapmine. So we're very happy that's happening. So cybersecurity has been our core investment thesis. We have a fund for the last 3 years investing there. We had that defense dual usage, actually, also for the last, because we were in VR and there was a lot of things in VR, actually, that were related to dual usage. Defense purely has been this last year, right? Even before we were trying to shy away from offensive cybersecurity. We try to always play in defensive cybersecurity. But the current economics are what they are. I think there is a very important fact. We have 50 plus investments in Ukraine. So we've been present. We're the largest investor, international investor. I think us is 3, and the next 3 guys together are smaller than Wise guys. So we've been really present there. So obviously the last 2 years we've seen an evolution from SaaS companies, fintech companies. Suddenly, we have founders on the front. And something happened this year. Actually, we just did an investment in defense, but it was one of our previous CEO that was in the front. You have to think that we have very smart people in the front lines. That has never happened. And these guys are coming with a founder mentality. Said, "Oh, this is a problem. There is a gap." And obviously, they're applying this into drones. They're applying this into the way information is being used there. So we actually make the first two pure defense investments in Ukraine. We had done previously a couple of them in Estonia. It's not something you want to be proud of, but it's something that we have to do because nobody else is going to do it. I think we Europeans need to get their hands dirty.
But they don't want to still. Like, majority of the VCs are still, like, shaking their heads and being super hesitant when we talk about dual use. Do you sometimes run into troubles advocating it? Or maybe that's different between Baltic countries and Sea and West, but we run several panels advocating or arguing about dual usage, which is not even defense, it's still dual use. There's still such a hesitancy, like, do we invest in it or no? Do we openly talk about it? Like, defense, in a lot of VC close, people are still against it. Like, still many VCs are still like, yeah, and we are not touching it.
It's good to be comfy with your management fees in your office and ignoring the world. That's fine.
Yeah.
I think I've been spending lately quite a bit of time also in Finland, and they clearly see the enemy is at the gates, right? So we cannot just be waiting, right? So I think I'm seeing, a good number of sustainability investors really with a core of business culture saying, I'm doing defense because this is the only way right now to be in the good side. And the guys are going to Ukraine, spending time in Kyiv, not even from Finland, they are going there. So I think this axis of Baltics, Finland, even Poland probably, they feel it because they know the enemy is there, right? So, and I think they have already the experience from the previous war that nobody will, in the very bad moment, nobody will come. You're on your own, right? Yeah. So you better learn how to do it. And I think that's kind of the bad angle of it. The good angle of it is the example of Israel and the US, which is, this is the real deep tech innovation engine, right? Way more powerful than just pure deep tech. So actually, if you become very good in defense, the way you can apply this technology afterwards is actually, is exponential, right? So I think that's actually what the part that I'm excited. I'm not excited about having a UV drone that can actually kill more people or go faster. I'm very excited about maybe finally in Europe we're going to be doing deep tech properly because we actually don't shy away from defense. And that's one of the best ways to get amazing founders getting to do deep tech and really moving things forward. And again, I'm seeing the Israel, and we always compare many times Estonia with Israel in terms of the two small countries with unicorns, with this mentality. And this is probably a big opportunity to really even take the development further.
You even see NATO, getting their hands in the startup life. Are you cooperating on any level with their accelerator?
Yes, we're partners in Diana. I love the idea that NATO is putting money on the innovation ecosystem. I hope that I think it's right now becoming, again, too slow and then sales trying to do it directly. I think they should let operators do it. I think there should be financiers, there should be connectors, but they should not be the operators. I don't think NATO knows how to work with the startups in early stage. And I think so, but I think there's a learning curve. Hopefully it's not too slow because, again, speed is at the core right now. But, they're trying to play the role. They're trying to make sure that they say, we need to invest. They're trying to put the discussion of defense investments at the core of European countries. So that can only be positive. Execution could be much better, but we're knocking at the door. We're talking to them constantly. We're telling them about this is early stage. You're thinking like serious, say, this is defense. You need to think differently. But obviously, the defense companies are selling to NATO and they're selling to the military forces of NATO countries, right? And that's the only way you can actually be connecting between different countries, usually through NATO. So it is no matter what's happening, it is positive. I think it can be executed better, but it's positive. And yes, we are a partner with them. We're partnered in Estonia. We're partnered in the UK. We're talking right now in Spain also with them. We're in Finland very much talking with MODs all the time. So yeah, that's something that needs to happen.
And does this defense focus or dual use focus slightly changes the B2B rule that you have? Because you mostly invest in B2B software startups. Is it changing now? Because
Not really.
defense is really like B2G more of a...
Yeah, but to me, I would say we never say B2G, but we have already many companies selling. We have a number of companies selling to hospitals. Well, that's
sure.
B2G at the end of the day, that's selling to public sector. But it's true. I would call it is an enterprise customer with his uniqueness on it, on how you sell it, on the cycles. So I think defense is very unique in terms of who is your customer, and I think and it's a very relationship building business. And it's a business dominated by very large players on distribution. So I think it's a very interesting animal in that sense, right? I don't think it's an animal for everybody to dominate. But the startups need to understand very long selling. No, now in Ukraine, you might be able to get faster cycles to sell because whatever is being active or is effective is being used. But overall, the sales cycles are slower. The R&D cycles are larger. The capital intensity is very large. So you need to understand that part, right? And I think that's different.
Yeah, maybe the borders between B and G are blending in these times. How do you work with the Ukrainian founders, like with the imminent danger, with them being in the front lines?
I think for the first 6 months, you were being hit by the reality constantly, right? I think you were opening the news, everything was on the news constantly, etc. I think we have almost going the opposite way, which is almost, we're talking to Ukrainian founders, we're investing on them. Like, you don't think, these are guys who are at war, right? So you for you, they're just founders, right? The good thing is because we just did a dedicated project with EBRD and with Taiwan Business, actually focusing on growth companies in Ukraine, because the one thing we saw was that there was a lot of, let's help startup founders in Ukraine. And we saw, guys, there is no new startups, right? The only new startups are defense, right? But we have a lot of founders that were doing something and they got hit by the war, right? So they lost either they were selling to Russia, they lost the market. If they were in Ukraine, they lost the market. If they were expanding, they cannot get access out, right? So I think our focus in Ukraine, although we have done probably 8-9 new investments in the last year anyway, is being how do we help existing portfolio and existing founders of going back to grow and going back to grow in these circumstances and going back to way more remote based teams and teams that maybe the founders cannot meet up, right? So that we have worked. The second thing we have seen is that they're obviously trying to help and stay. More and more have realized the infrastructure is not helping them. There's lack of internet, there's lack of electricity. That they're finding ways. Many of them have half of the team working remotely, so that is not hitting them. But the other thing, as a founder, you need to treat them as a normal founder. As the mental health, let's put it this way, support, you need to understand that some days are going to be terrible for them. That constantly under a level of uncertainty that is even beyond the normal startup. So I think you have that level of sympathy, right? At the same time, they have more drive than ever because they not only they want to win the war, but they want to prove that Ukraine has something special, right? So I think this level of pride was not there before the war, and now we see it, right? And I think
everywhere.
It's going to become the next generation of Ukrainian founders. I think will be like known for in history. This will be the first generation of really 20, 30, 40 unicorns coming from there over time, just because this level of drive and also the sympathy. So I think they need to play the sympathy from investors, from support on their favor, right? And
does it work when you are helping them growth, scale, and invest new money? Do you see the other VCs that are not that experienced with Ukrainians? Do you see them like jumping on board, or are they very hesitant because they are like, we don't know what's going to happen, etc.?
I think the later stage ones, no, they are. The traction is there, the founders are there, they go. I think probably in the earliest stage, I will say for sure the first 12 months almost nobody was investing there. I think by now everybody is not even taking that out of the equation. I think the only question is when they hear a name like that, is that guy Russian or Ukrainian? Ukrainian, okay, that's fine. So I think it's more about where are they coming from. But I think early stage is total normality. I think from a VC point of view, I don't think that one. I think if you look at it, I think some VCs are more worried about the macro. Say we have a lot of exposure to Ukraine, to even to the sea. Some of them say maybe we need to have less exposure. So I think on the macro level, they are more worried about what is going to happen with the economies because of this. On the micro level, I think they meet a good founder from Ukraine. They look at the traction, they like it. I don't think there is this risk factor, let's not do it because they're Ukrainian, right? I don't think it's there.
So how do you work with startups in general? You first accept them in the accelerator, and then if you like them, you later invest in them?
No. Or, this is something that is core for us, which is we call ourselves first believers, right? So this, let me work with you, and then if I like you, I invest. To me, that doesn't play the chord, right? So we always invest first, and then they come to the accelerator. And I think when you're working with them and you have invested of them, the way you work with them, the level of your commitment towards them
motivation
also
definitely
is completely different, right? So to me, this is what I think the majority of accelerators, the way they were launched in Europe, and the reputation of many of them is because they were not investing, right? So they were just giving some money from a region to run a program. But when you don't put your money on it, the way you're making decisions, the way you're supporting them is completely different, right? And I think also your relationship with the founder is very different. You say, I put money on you. You know, like I bet on you, right?
Yeah, so it's like really put money where your mouth is.
Exactly, right? So I think that is very interesting. So for us, it's a rule. Of course, we do maybe 10% of our investments, we only invest directly, so they don't come to the accelerator. But I would say the majority is we find them, we invest on them, and then they come to the program.
You often say that you love passion and you like to work with passionate people and you like to invest in passionate people. And then the CEO founders or the CE people in general are not really famous for being super passionate and open. So do you find them passionate enough or do you sometimes struggle with that?
I think we cannot confuse charisma or we cannot confuse the way you saw passion. So they're not going to be a Spanish guy jumping, oh yeah, yeah. No, we call them the poker players, right? But the passion the inner passion is there, right? And I think you just need to understand what is driving them. And this is why, we wrote the book about perform and we talk about purpose, I is still almost if I do 30 minutes to an hour with the startup, one of my key jobs is to understand what is driving them, right? So what is that inner force that is driving them? We all know that money is not enough, right? So of course, some of them you can feel the passion right away when you talk to them, but it's true that the Eastern Europeans, Central Eastern Europeans, it's more difficult. But I think also we don't have a culture bias because we've been there, right? So we don't go in and say, like, oh, they're not passionate. No, we're not invest. I think, we invest in all these countries. We know founders from all these places. So I think you go way deeper, right? Than just judging by how they look in the face, right? It's funny that sometimes they tell you, yeah, I'm very passionate, and I get a straight face, and you're like, dude, really, let's make an effort, right? But I think you're looking for the inner passion, not this extrovert charisma that people might confuse.
So it's not like presentation on stage, exactly. More like what drives you. So do you believe more like when somebody is pitching you a startup, do you more believe in their inner motivation that they, had some problems, they decided to fix it with the startup? Or do you are more like, numbers guy talking, there's a, gap on the market, so we decided to fill in?
Numbers don't matter in early stage. They are irrelevant. Like even 25K MRR, which might sound, wow, 25,000 euros MRR already, is irrelevant because growing it to 100 is a different company. Growing it to 1 million AIR is a different company. Growing to 10 million. So one thing that has surprised me over the years in this job is that how much, basically, past success does not guarantee future success. Meaning, a founder that have taken the company to 1 million AIR can dramatically fail taking it to 10 million. Because it's a different animal. It's different processes, different type of people, different type of speed. So it's good that you have executed, but doesn't guarantee the next one, right? Probably it tells you, as you said, well, okay, you have a 1 million AIR, the problem exists. It's clear, right? But now that doesn't mean that you can scale it, right? So when we're looking at the early stage, everything is team. Absolutely everything. Of course, you're going to say, is there's a product, does it make sense? Has some differentiation. But you can have all of that. If the team is bad, nothing will happen. You can have nothing of that. The team is good. They will find an angle. They will find a differentiation. If the problem, I think the one thing we need to understand is does the problem exist? Because if they are passionate about the problem, they're probably going to put all the effort in that problem. There might be a different way to solve it, a pivot on that, but is the problem real? Are they passionate about the problem? And is this a good team? And that's the three things that you have to solve, right? The rest it will evolve so much that you wouldn't even remember what they were doing at the beginning sometimes. Like it's just like completely different animals. So to me, team, and it sounds like people ask you, really? That's what everybody says? Yeah, but we have 10 years. Like the average exit is 10 years. Who cares about the product? I care about, will these people execute? Will these people be together? Will these people complement and fight in the 3 to 4 crises ahead of them in the next 10 years? And that's, I think, what is our superpower. That's, I think, the one thing that we probably better than others on judging. And then it's work. It's just work and work and work. I always compare with marriage, right?
Sounds like this was
you can be so much in love. You can be all you want. Marriage is work. That is both people wanted to, hey, let's continue, let's face the challenges, let's never give up, let's find solutions, let's pivot.
Yes.
So, and then you have a kid that's the company is growing, the company is scaling, this is changing completely everything, right? So to me is that, will these guys keep working together on making this happen despite all the difficulties? Or will they give up? I was looking yesterday, the divorce rate in Portugal is 91%, in Spain is 88%. Said, shit, you're going to almost as bad as startup. I think you're getting married, I have a 90%, I'm going to get divorced. Like, this is worse than investing almost. And it's very expensive also. So I said, wow, now the analogy is even becoming more powerful, right? Because sometimes you decide not to start working.
What was the divorce rate?
Huh?
Yeah, you were talking about that.
The divorce rate is 93% in Portugal and 81% in Spain. In Czech, it's about 50%. I was looking yesterday at the rates. I was like, you're kidding me, right? Like, I was like, wow. So
there should be betting agencies.
Yeah, because I've seen the statistics, but the EU average is above 50% already. Okay, but some
we
countries,
live longer sometimes.
Some countries are like I was like, wow, this is worse than.
But 93 is crazy.
93, and you think also Spain and
people
Portugal
still do it,
because you think it's Catholic, is this kind of culture, etc. Like 90%, like, oh my goodness. So but I think again it's always been a great analogy to compare co-founders with marriage, right? So to me, this is a very long-term relationship that will evolve, and you're always just about, do these people do they have a vision of how they want to live their life together? So to me, it's very similar when you're a co-founder, right? And I think I always said, you should spend way more time at the beginning finding the right co-founder instead of finding the right idea, the right product. So invest way more time on people. Then you will find whatever idea you want to do. But the key thing is, do you want to work with these people? Is these people complementing you? Do they think diverse from you, right? Because we always try to gravitate towards people that think very similarly, which means you're going to be approaching problem solving very similarly. So you're not having different... so people talk about diversity. That's what diversity means, is you need to have different angles. And of course, gender usually is a different angle because we think differently. Age might be, personality, culture, nationality. This is when you find really power and diversity. And to me, this is something that we really underestimate when looking at teams. Yeah,
well, we'll tackle diversity a little bit later, but still, I'm just astonished by the statistic, and I'm trying to calculate it. Like, it's almost more probably, like, we could do, like, whether your marriage will work as a startupist or if you will become a unicorn or something like that. Oh. That's,
so now the bet is, will you stay together when you die? And it's like, likely, very unlikely, right? So to me, this is the same thing. At the end of the day, again, when you start a startup, when you're getting a shareholders agreement, you're basically getting a partners agreement, right? So you say, what happens if we split up, right? So again, cover all those basics, which is the same thing that we tell people when they get married. They make sure that there is never a fight about money. Because then at least the human relationship will be kept, even if sometimes the vision and departs from each other, right? And to me, this is the same idea, right? And, actually, it's interesting because we we have never shied away from founders that are married or from siblings that want to run a company. So we have never found a way that there is a very strong personal relationship. I think because it has positive connotation. There is trust already built there between co-founders that might not be there. When they are a partnership in life, there is trust already built there, right? So it comes actually with positive connotation. We always tell them, guys, do you have a prenuptial agreement? And sometimes they look at you like, why are you asking me this? Because I'm going to invest in you, and I have a 90% between 50-90% that you divorce and a 59% that you're actually going to fail as a startup. So I'm putting two risks together here, right? So I want to make sure that one of them, at least, if it goes wrong, you are not. And we had divorces in a couple of startups, and the startups survive. Because
they're still working together, even though they.
In one of the cases, they do. In the other one of them left, basically, but at least because there was enough prenup there.
There is a huge market for prenups.
So, and I think that you need to take care of these things, right? And I think do not underestimate managing these basics, right?
You invest all over the place, mostly in Europe and in Africa. You've got 440 plus portfolio companies. So in this whole startup cuisine, who do you think that has the most inner passion cuisine you've seen?
I think we coined this term called the New Europe some years back. And I think when we see in the Baltics, when we see in Turkey, what we saw in some of the Eastern European countries, what we saw in Ukraine, I think the drive there is much bigger than everything you see in general terms, because there is founders and founders, in any of the large Western European countries or in the Nordics, right? So I think, and that is one of the things that we love about investing in the region, right? I think there is this inner drive that is much, much bigger. It might come because, there is not the wealthiness that have been seen in the Western countries. Because
there's the imminent danger.
I think it's also corporate. There is very large corporates in all these countries. They were not in the smaller countries. So actually, the role models in Estonia, all the role models are actually, everybody wants to be like the guy from Bolt or like the guy from PipeDrive. So the role model is not to be in McKinsey or to be, in one of the large banks. The role model is to become one of the unicorn founders, right? And I think that's taught in school, that's in the media. So I think that creates inner drive. So being an entrepreneur is a career in most of these countries, right? So you're born, I want to be an entrepreneur, I don't want to be anything else. And yes, so you work in a startup, then you create your own startup, then you fail, but you're gravitating around that sector, right? So to me, that comes. I think outside Europe, when we're looking a lot about Central Asia, etc., it's still very much, some people, but not the whole society is driving there. So I think this ECE part, I think is very strong. We've seen it a lot in the Baltics. We've seen also in Ukraine. We've seen some of the European countries, or Central Eastern European countries. We were not seeing it in the Balkans, actually. We start seeing it in some of the Balkan countries, actually, which I think is the next wave of there. So, but I think there it is clear.
And are those because you very often speak about the overlooked markets and overlooked startupists? Are those the markets, the New Europe? Sorry, you might need to change that term, but New Europe, are those the overlooked markets you speak about?
I think we see it in two ways. Initially, it was very clear that it was the kind of the smaller countries, specifically in the Central Eastern European region. There were the Baltics, there was Ukraine, that was big, but nobody was looking at it. I remember cases in Armenia, so indeed that were the overlooked markets. I wouldn't then call right now the Baltics an overlooked market. I think that was amazing. But for example, when we went to Italy, now when we are in Spain, actually from the VC point of view, they're very much overlooked. Like you ask any guy in VC, give me 5 countries in Europe, I don't think they will ever say Italy. Right, like it will not even cross their mind. And we have done 4 investments there. We have found amazing founders. So some of the bigger countries are also being overlooked among the big countries in Europe, right? So we keep looking for that one. And I think if you go beyond countries, sometimes it's cities, right? So in Spain, we are not in Madrid or Barcelona. We're in Bilbao, we're in Malaga, we're looking at the periphery all the time. I think that's where you find actually these ecosystems that really have this hunger level to do things less unconventionally. And I think that's what we want to see, right? So these this maverick, this underdog mentality. I think that's what we like to see. That's what we like to put our efforts.
And how do you scout for them? Meaning, like, if you don't have presence in those overlooked market, how do you find them?
I think the power of the brand is important.
Yeah.
I think we have been cultivating the brand for years. I think it has been almost a religious element about never pollute our brand, right? So I think the brand has a lot of attraction. Obviously, the second one is we've been verticalizing the programs. So, you might not have presence in that particular country, but in cyber, to give you an example, we're probably the largest and most active early stage investors. So we know a lot of people, right? And people will recommend, our founders will recommend other founders. Our founders tell us, hey, all the cyber guy geeks in this country are hanging out in this particular community, maybe in a WhatsApp community, maybe in a Telegram community. So, but the best founders, you need to find them. Right? They're not going to come to you. Like, you might convince them because you are good, but the best founders, you need to find them. So you still need to go to conferences. You still need to be constantly, everything that moves in the communities. You need to be very active. But of course, we play the international guy, not the local guy. And that's a different animal, right? And I think the local founders just looking for local VCs in the majority of CE countries, they're not going to succeed. Because they just play in their comfort zone. So we are going to take you out of your comfort zone, and you need to be looking for that. It means that there might be some amazing founders that are not for us, be it. But I think again, it's branding. I think the key thing for us is put our brand there, and the big effort in the last 3 years is put our brand in the different verticals as an expert in that vertical. In some, we are more successful than others so far, but that's our key work going forward. And of course, then success cases will happen, and then startups will come to you, right? So the more role models, the more startups are doing well. So, oh, you guys want to start a wise guys? Okay, that's interesting. So that is also calling more and more founders to talk to us.
You said you are putting your brand in several verticals, and you already mentioned cybersecurity, defense, VR. Are there verticals you aren't interested in?
I think we usually have signed away from medtech, biotech, so extremely capital intensive. So it's like
traditionally deep tech.
Yeah, well, we actually like deep tech a lot, but I will say it has to be still on the software side, right? So I think, hardware or super long cycles, I think it has to be deep tech that in a way has a commercial angle, and we understand that if it's longer, and we've been in robotics, we've done very good investments in robotics. So, but I think bio and medtech, we have done some investments, but also we don't understand it, right? You have to have a very deep core understanding of that vertical. So we've never done B2C. So I think that takes us away from some of the FCMG products or related industries. We've done a lot of marketing, martech, but we actually shy away for a while because we have never found anything good. I think with the whole entry of AI, that is changing a lot. So we've done probably, 5-10 investments this year in things that are working for marketing agencies, for marketing departments, for marketing directors. So we kind of go back there. HR tech, never been successful, but there's always a problem to solve. So we've done 3 or 4 more investments in the last year. Also,
still hoping.
Oh, there's AI.
Yeah,
I think it's too much talk about AI, but it is true that it's creating a wave of innovation in different verticals, right? In which you can do with way less resources major things, right? So we see a lot of people coming in, and everybody says, what we do in AI, I think you need to go massive about what do you really do in AI. A lot of them just wrapping some shit over ChatGPT, right? But it is true innovation there right now.
Yeah, do you still hear it? Like, if they are using AI, aren't you like asking,
Well, I don't care.
Tell me.
It's not, let me think that you do AI. And then you're like, okay, tell me, explain me what you really do in AI. What is the benefit of your AI? So first, I don't care about the words. Okay, explain to me what's the benefit at the end of the day. Explain to me the way you're using AI, how that's making a differentiation, how you're making things better than your competitors. So you try to bring it yourself to business. We have a technical team. We have that does technical due diligence. So these guys are really going to go afterwards in the deeper side to look at the architecture, to look at the product, and try to say, hey, is there really something really meaningful technically or product-wise happening? But again, if AI is just a ticking point, you need to understand what is the business differentiation of using any technology for this business and what is the problem that you're trying to solve, right?
Yeah, and the team is still super important. And you mentioned the team and diversity and the importance of that. And there is 60 of you in Startup Wise Guys and 25 nationalities. What does the diversity bring to your table?
I think diversity calls diversity. I think people who is valuing these very different ways of thinking. I think also a lot of the nationalities comes because of the freedom, the way we operate. So we've been always remote based, although I'm a bigger believer more and more about we need to find ways to have people together in the same place as much as possible when possible. But that doesn't limit that people comes and goes, they travel, they work remotely, etc. So that kind of calls for a very specific animal that actually likes to live that way, right? And I think it comes with openness of mind. So you cannot just say, oh, this is the way it's done. Well, you have 25 nationalities, probably it's done in 25 different ways, right? So I think you don't assume things. You have many more questions. I think people is way more critical because you have many different ways. So you have to be... I always remember a lot of people when they come in first, like, dude, in this company, anybody... You're talking and you have a question from the most junior guy challenging you. Never seen this in my life. So, well, that's the power of diversity. If you're not using it that way, if you put hierarchy over diversity, then diversity is killed, right? So you need to actually put it up, right? Which is allowing people to say whatever they're thinking, allowing people to execute. And then I think the second is that we invest in many countries. So I think for us it's super important to have people from those countries.
Yeah, but many VCs in those countries still look like clones.
Yeah, but because you're only looking from that country perspective to that country founders, right? I have a Turkish person, but she's dealing with all the international diversity and Turkish. So to me, it's able to put the both things together. And again, we're looking at Turkish about, can these Turkish guys go global? Mm-hmm. I don't want them to stay in Turkey. I want them to go global, right? So we can, but as you say, can we understand passion? So probably a local guy can say, I can feel the passion more than I probably will feel it, right? And I think that it took us 3-4 years to really understand Turkish founders. Like we couldn't get them initially, right?
And what were the troubles for that?
Well, I think the way English is not great, for example. I know you have this image of the Turkish people being the best salesman because you usually go to the spice market in Istanbul and you think that that's how all the Turkish are selling, right? The funny part is they're extremely technical Turkish guys and they're terrible commercially. Like really bad, right?
Like even worse than, because this is what the CE is famous for.
So even worse. Okay, so this is why it fit very well with our investment strategy because it's like very good product-driven founders who speak bad English and says like shit and doesn't know how to pitch. So we can deal with that animal. We know that animal, right? But I think we need a bit of local, and also you need networks, right? You need to ask, hey, do you know this founder? What has this founder done before, right?
And how do you deal with that? Do you make them hire a foreign salesperson, or do you teach them how to sell?
I think I love both. I do think that, but it's very difficult to get a full, and I'm not picking up on the Turkish guy, but just continue the example. It's very difficult to tell 4 founders Turkish to hire a non-Turkish guy and put them as a salesperson. It's really difficult. I think
because of the nationalism, or
I think because of the trust. Because suddenly you get a complete, it's not team only new animal, then we need to speak English in the management team.
Yes.
And I think it takes only very good founders. Or sometimes when the founder is alone, and then he's okay just involving one new person. When you have a team of 4 that knows very well, this is a very disruptive force, right? What happens is sometimes you get a customer in that country, and then can say, okay, we need to get somebody to really deal with that, right? So I think commercial success. But I would say the best teams, they learn how to sell, so they learn what they're looking for, and then they hire an international salesperson. Those are the teams, in my opinion, that they have the biggest chance to succeed. In that sense.
You said that you, in one of your interviews, that you listen to a pitch even though that the pitch is terrible.
Yeah.
Why do you do that to yourself? Because of the Turkey example?
I think we have this saying, you can make shit look like chocolate but not taste like chocolate, right?
Yeah.
So you can find a lot of amazing pitches and there is nothing behind it.
We call that you cover shit in aluminum.
Yeah. So it's like you wrap it, right? So I think there is way more behind the pitch, right? So pitch is just a way to communicate something, and I think you need to go behind that one. It's also true. I was in Warsaw talking to a couple of, we were in a panel with VCs, and I said, in 10 seconds, we know if we like you or not. I think we're biased like everybody else. I think this is the reason why in any fund you should have 3 or 4 or 5 GPs, because you have diversity of thinking and you can challenge each other, right? Because within 10 seconds, you like the founder. Then you go deeper about more things, but is it, do I connect with this person, yes or no? And I think that is 10 seconds. I don't think it takes much longer. It might be 10 seconds when you're paying attention, because sometimes it's true that the first you're a bit, another call, okay. But I think once you put yourself there, you very quickly said, do I like this person? Do I connect with this person or not? Can I work with this person or not? And then you go deeper into the business part. But I think that you make it very quickly. So I think that's what you need to be constantly. You need to find the hidden gems, right? They're just not going to knock on your door. I think you need to do your homework. You need to go and listen to many pitches. You need to meet many founders. And then you need to fight for the good ones, because the good ones are picky. They're going to be negotiating with you, and I always like, oh, fuck this founder. And then you realize these are the good founders. You need to fight for them. Of course, you need to fight for them. But you always like, why they don't come and take my money and love my conditions and want to work with me? Because they have more choices, because they are selective, because they're looking like you for the best, right? So I think this is a good lesson. So you need to keep meeting founders constantly. Of course, I get my team filters and gives me the best 500 probably that I have to, but you still need to be putting, that's what you're good at. That's your job, is selecting the best founders. So you cannot shy away from your job.
You need to fight for the good founders. We mentioned communication, and based on Startup Wise Guys communication, like on your video and the communication of your team, you seem like all very, very pro founders and super positive. Example, the head of your brand saying that this is a place where dreams come true. And you in your video, that Startup Wise Guys is a family that is changing founders' life. But frankly, investors are sometimes not the founder's friends. Sometimes they need to push out the original founder's team because they are not performing and because it's good for the startup. So do you think that in the end it is still true?
I think when we say we are founders driven, means we always understand the problem from the founder's point of view, right? So at least you need to put yourself on their. It's like when, we go out and we said, wow, this founder is making an exit at 20 million. I said, oh my God, this founder is terrible. 20 million is not enough return for me, etc. And then you have to say, okay, hey, this guy is 27. He owns 80% of the company. He's seeing 16 million euros in his bank account. What do you think he's thinking? Of course he's going to think, I need to take it, right? And what are you thinking? No, we can multiply 5 more times because I just invested myself at 1 million. I'm only making 2x. Yeah, but you're not putting yourself in his shoes, right? Or, hey, they just have 2 kids. I'm sure, their wife or husband are saying, cut this crap, put 16 million in the bank. What are you thinking about, etc., right? So I think you need to empathize and you need to understand how they're thinking. Then you can put yourself and tell them, hey, this is what I will do. This is why I think differently than you, etc. And then, but it's their decision. So one thing
so you never push founders to
it's their company
to take your decision.
It's their company. I am a minority shareholder. This is their dream. I'm not working there for 10 years. They're working there for 10 years. I'm working in my own company for 10 years. So in Wise Guys, I can tell you when I'm making the decisions and I can listen to my board, but at the end of the day, it's my responsibility, right? But to me, it's the same thing. But it's true that you have the obligation to bring to the table when you, I think so. We are founders friendly, but why sometimes founders don't want to work with us? Because no, we're not going to tell you, good job. Yeah, that's what we think.
Pat on the back.
I'm going to tell you what I think. And I think we coach our team to always be straightforward. And when it's a piece of shit pitch, I don't tell you, oh, well done, but let's improve. No, it's a piece of shit. So nobody's listening. It's boring. You're not hooking anybody. And I think most good founders like honesty, right? But some of them, they hate it. and that's not somebody to work with, right? And that's fine. I think you need to also admit this. So I think founders friendly mean putting yourself on their shoes and understand why they're making those decisions, respecting that it's their company, but at the same time be extremely honest and clear and straightforward, because time is at essence, right? And I think that's your job. And I think that gains respect. I always say to people, I don't want people to be my friend. I want people to respect me, right? I'm not going to be sometimes the funniest guy. I'm going to tell sometimes things they don't want to listen to, but it's coming from a point of, it's coming from my heart. It's coming from, I care about what you're doing, right? So I want respect. I don't want love. And I think that's coming almost, it's the same with my employees. I love all of them, but again, I want respect, not love. Hey, if then we become best friends forever, fantastic. I have couple of founders, I'm the godfather of their kids, right? So we have developed a relationship to complete the next level. It's been 8 years, 9 years working
Can you
together.
like fight in the work and have beer done and later and be completely fine?
Totally. But that's
So you don't hold grudges?
I've been playing basketball all my life. I go to practice and I can kill the other point guard during practice. I will just like put my 100% there. That's what makes us better, is to train harder, etc. Game finishes, game is over. You go to have a beer, you chat, you smile about it. So this is the same thing. We're playing a game, we're practicing every day. After practice, there's time to have a laugh, to relax, etc. And I think if you're good at it, then that makes a difference. Some people don't like it, but I have so many guys, and I think this is one of the most rewarding part of my job, that can say, you know what? You told me something 3 years ago, 4 years ago, dude, I still remember. Dude, it changed my life. You're like, it made me reflect for years afterwards. And to me, it's like, this makes my day or my week or my month. This makes all my hard work and all my bad moments worth it, right? Because you are changing people's lives, right?
So you fight on the sport field and then be completely okay 5 minutes later.
Yeah. Right.
Same in startup. Still, it seems that your pro-founders approach with your approach to work-life balance, it's slightly like, even like here in the studio, it's slightly like uncapitalist-like or un-VC-like of what we have here in studio and what we hear all the time from the, American VC podcast and movies. It's like you have to, work yourself. You have to be there. And you were saying no. You're saying no even to the founders, to your team. You're saying you need to work on your family happiness. You need to work on your other hobbies. Why is that?
First, I work my ass off, right? I work humongous amount of hours. I have a family, I have my sports, my hobbies. I love what I do, right? So to me, but at the end of the day, I think we always joke about you need to listen to your body, right? And I think when we put in our vision and our purpose that we want the founders to create great international sustainable companies, mean they need to be sustainable over time, right? So this is a marathon. So to me, being all in doesn't mean that you work 24 hours. It means that you really put in all your mental energy on making this company happen, right? But to put all your mental energy, you need to take care of your muscles. So you need to eat well, you need to sleep well, you need to have hobbies, you need to have a support.
Didn't you say that you had yesterday 9 coffees?
Yeah. I'm being on a very strong diet, so I skip some of the. But when I write my book with Stoyan, and he has the whole area about. How you eat. I have 9 coffees, and I usually the super networking days that you're there. Oh, let's have a coffee. And you're like, dude, I have 9 coffees today. But I also have about 3 liters of water, right? So for example, I am really very much into my water intake all the time, etc. So I think that you manage well. But again, I think people underestimate their health. I have so many walks with founders. They're like, man, dude, I'm really about to be burned out. And it's like, so why are you waiting to take a vacation? Oh, the team cannot survive. It's like, what if you go down? Then they will really not get to survive, right? So I think people need to listen to their bodies way more and understand that it can wait, right? And I think this is a very consuming, this is a very hard job, right? This is the hardest job, the hardest profession you can choose in life is entrepreneurship. There is nothing harder than this. Mentally, at least, in my opinion. So if you choose that path, you need to have the counterbalance elements, right? So you need to, and that's, let's go and meditate. Hey, this is not about doing, for some people, yoga might be the way to do it. For some people, might be playing basketball. Some people might be playing the piano, might be cooking, might be time with their kids. But again, hey, you're going with your kids, stop the phone. Maybe you only have 1 hour with your kids a day. That's great, but be the hour, right? So you switch off your phone, you sit down with them, and that 1 hour is going to give everyone so much positive energy, right? So to me, it's always about do what you do totally, right? And I think, secondly, it's like you cannot work more than 10 hours efficiently. You're dead. No. If you're working 10 hours a day, you're dead. Like you're like your body is born finito. The rest of your hours, you're producing 10%. Right, so I think we need to understand that one, and we understand that this is going to last for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I think the second one that I've been evolving a bit is like over time is like I have something I need to communicate to you, right? And sometimes you're at night and you're going to send a WhatsApp to your team. It's like control yourself, dude. You're thinking about it, but you send it to your team. They're going to think it's urgent. You're going to disrupt them. So you're not texting 10 p.m. Saturday night? I will never text or saying, this is urgent, look at it. Right? Yeah. Sometimes, and it depends. I know my team, and I know who in my team is very good at boundaries, that if I send something, hey, we need to think about that, I say, okay, fine. And they know it's not going to bother them, and they're going to think about it tomorrow morning. And the people that you do that, and they said, you screw the weekend, because they're now going to stay. So, but I also tell people, you are responsible for your own life. You're responsible for your own boundaries, right? So I'm going to many times, not on the stupidity of this is urgent, but I'm going to push. And you have to say, hey, 3 to 4, I'm with my kids. Or on the weekends, I don't look at my phone.
And you respect that. You're like, yeah, of course.
I don't respect when you don't respect yourself. If you don't put the boundaries, I'll keep pushing, because I keep pushing myself. I want it. But you have to be responsible, saying, hey, and I have so many people say, hey, at night, I don't look at my phone. Oh, hey, between 5 and 8 is my kids' time. Or, I know, hey, I have my head of scouting said, why you keep putting meetings at 9 o'clock in the morning? You take your kids to school. You're only available after 9:30. So stop taking meetings at 9:15. Tell people we start at 9:30, because that is when you can focus. That is when you already have it. And then once you start, she's a machine, right? She's an extremely good employee, right? But I said that, respect yourself. Until 9:30 that you take your kids to school, don't put any meetings. And everybody knows, nobody gets surprised. Nobody questions your loyalty or your dedication. You're actually respecting yourself. And I think you need to put that into people, right? And I think I have my head of legal does Pilates on Mondays and Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. Right? I know he does Pilates, and the guy's like the most dedicated guy in the world, but he has his Pilates, and he likes them on Monday and Wednesday. And why not? But he's very clear. I'm going to Pilates. I will be offline for 1.5 hours. Okay, fine, great. I know you're going to be fantastic afterwards, right? So to me, it's about you have to respect yourself. And to me, it's like you might have better bosses, you might have better colleagues, there might be people supporting you, but it all starts by you respecting yourself, respecting your boundaries, understanding your body, and start working today about how do you improve your body and your health.
Yeah, so the balance bring performance.
And if you don't, but it's like when you're a professional player and you're eating in McDonald's. You can practice all you want, but you're eating like shit. So that's going to cost you something, right? So
I really like the sentence that unless the founder or your teammate, they don't respect themselves, you don't respect them. Yeah. And you push until they push back. That's something to learn from.
We're dealing with adults, and I think sometimes we try to treat our employees like kids. Oh, they're too young, they're too inexperienced. Said, well, if you treat them like young and inexperienced, they will be young and inexperienced, right? So to me, this is about transparency. There's a problem with cash. Oh, don't tell them, they get nervous. We have a problem with cash. If they cannot deal with that, they shouldn't be here. They should go somewhere in which they know how to have this problem, right? And when you treat them with respect, where you're transparent, people said, okay, I appreciate that. I might like it or not, but I appreciate you are actually treating me like an adult. And everybody is above 22, right? So they're adults.
And they never misuse your, how should I put that, tolerance?
Yes, they do. So you learn. You have a lot of people. Some people will use it better. Some people will use it worse. But at the end of the day, you have a culture. You have a way to do things. You're being very clear from the beginning. That's the way you do it. And sometimes you need to adapt. Hey, we know that they're going to use it this way. Maybe we should. So, of course, you adapt and you understand the feedback that your team is giving to you. But I think if you treat people like adults and professionals, they will be better adults and better professionals. And I think this is also very important to understand when managing teams, right?
You mentioned the book, that you guys wrote is the Perform the Unsexy Truth of Startup Success. So without any spoilers and without, it's even in the title, but what is the biggest truth that we don't talk enough?
No. Yeah, it's a 3-year book. So we are about to we launch next month Perform in Crisis, which is taking into what happens when you're hit by a crisis. Can you still respect?
And it's already written, I assume. Yeah.
But basically, the whole point here is that there is a lot of unsexy things in life that you control. And this is
like prenups.
Your health, is setting the values of the company, is planning properly, is communicating properly. So if you do all this boring and sexy, so it's not about pitching. We don't talk about, you pitch well, you're going to have a great company. No. It's about if you do all these things well and systematically, your chances of success are, and it's about talking about health. I said, how much water you drink? So I can take a fund and say, you don't drink 2 liters of water for the next 10 years, you're going to die, no matter how amazing you are, right? So and you're in control. Nobody else is in control. So it's talking about all these aspects. In the first book, I think we tried to do 2 things. One was to put a lot of examples from founders from the region. Mm-hmm. So you don't think it's all about the guy in the US, in the garage, in the UK. So you put people from Estonia, people from Czech, people from Ukraine, people from Denmark. People that say, hey, that's my neighbor. So if your neighbor is doing it, why you cannot do it, right? So put people closer to you. And the second one was there was a lot of exercises about how can I start thinking about this, putting planning, etc. I think the next book is way more narrative. Although I have to say I have a chapter which is how to lay off people. And again, it is part of a startup life, but there is good ways to do it, good ways to do it, and bad ways to do it. And there is also it's not only about firing people, it's how do you onboard people. So how do you actually help them get the next job? Are you proactively, when you do that, helping them? Are you putting a LinkedIn post? Are you asking them what they need to say about you? You need a reference. So to me, there's people who treat you as a number. This is the box. See, I need to take care of my own shit. And these people say, no, I know I'm impacting your life. And most likely it's not your fault that we fire you. It's the company's performance that fire you. How can we take care a bit of you in a way in this difficult moment, right? And also telling people. But at the same time, when you're firing as a CEO, you feel it's all your fault also. It's like, fuck, I brought the company to this point. It's all my fault, etc. And sometimes it's not your fault.
And what can you then later go to play basketball?
I think you need to first take care of, don't be a victim. Mm-hmm. I think it's very easy to victimize yourself, right? And I said, oh my God, this is terrible. I brought this into comp. I said, you're not helping anybody by taking that perspective. Yeah. So I think it's get over it. Your job right now is to lay off people properly. So do it well, communicate well. The second thing is you need to take care of people staying in the company, who is going to be affected, who is losing friends that they like to work with, who might be also thinking we are next unless this improves. How do you do that, right? And if you don't do it well, nobody else will do it, right? So I think, I talk a little bit about that, and I talk about the whole process. I talk about how do you gain remotivation yourself and for the team afterwards. Because it's difficult. It's a journey, and you're going to, at the same time, so there's always people about how can you be optimistic, but still be transparent about the situation. I think that's kind of the message that we try to pass a lot during the crisis, right? And we are in the middle of it. I think everybody's feeling it. And I think it's important. Again, it's important to talk about it. It's important to be vulnerable and transparent. And I think that makes you stronger at the end of the day.
And how about fail? Like, do we talk about fail enough? Like saying, okay, you failed. Well, that's okay. Nothing happens. It's still right. Your lives go on. Do you think that we talk about it enough?
I think we're doing a better job if you talk about Europe. Yeah, there's many countries. But I think for sure 20 years ago, 10 years ago, this was not on the books. I think it was almost, nobody fails, right? I think the fact that Europeans have embraced the startup mentality, you cannot not accept failure if you're in a startup, right? And I think as we go there, I think the younger people, etc. But I do think that, I always tell people, like, you cannot go into a company and say, oh, we really like people to take risk. We really like people to learn from the mistakes. And the CEO never talks about his own mistakes, right? Then, the CEO is always perfect. The CEO is always making the right decision. So I think that everything starts by you being also, when you make a mistake, to go on public and people say, hey, I made this decision. I failed. This is why I made that decision. This is why I thought it was the right decision. Now it's clearly wrong. this is what I'm doing differently the next time, right? And if the CEO does that, then he will say, okay, we can't talk about failure because clearly, the CEO is actually being an example, right? And I think if you want to talk about failure, you need to be the first one accepting your own failures, communicating them, and telling people that that's how you learn, right? And we're humans. You don't learn by winning. You learn by failing. You learn by losing. You learn by mistakes. And this is the sad reality, right? So I think, of course, you have to be, as a CEO, your job is about in which areas we cannot tolerate failure because it's too risky for the companies and be maybe more there. And in every other place, let things happen, right? And the people will learn, people will improve, understand what is the risk tolerance of the company and make sure that in the places there is risk tolerance, make people fail. That's fine.
You work in this environment for 15 years. Yeah. And you mentioned that you're working your ass off, but also take care of your body, do some other hobbies, take care of your family balance, etc. Did you ever get anywhere close to burnout?
I don't think so. Mm-hmm. I think I'm being, I remember I was once in a spa in Alicante, in Altea, and there was this very great podologist guy. He started massaging my feet, right? And within 3 minutes he says, dude, the level of stress that you have kills people. Okay, and you clearly
from your feet.
From my feet. We just touching my feet. And in 3 minutes he told me, man, this level of stress kills many humans, right? You clearly
this feet needs to see.
So clearly, but again, there is a level of tolerance that you have that is different than others, right? I don't think I have ever been close to burnout at all. I don't even think I know what that means. I'm being preoccupied. I'm being under certain level of stress. There is sometimes signals in your health that the stress is affecting you more. So certain level of stress might actually allow you to perform at the highest level, right? But there is certain level of stress that becomes toxic. Or if it's a ongoing stress, it will kill you, right? So you have to say there is moments in which it's high pressure. Like it's important decisions. It's a tough moment. But you need to say, am I doing the right things to relieve that, right? And to make sure that it doesn't get into you. And to me, it's actually fairly easy to see because you deal with your kids. And when your kids are getting into your nerves very quickly, you understand you have a problem because they are not changing. It's that you have so much pressure. You are so impatient right now. And you're like, oof, careful. We need to deal with this. But I think it goes back to, hey, what are you doing? Are you eating well? Let's do more. Let's make sure you're not skipping the exercise. I have always slept as well or as bad on a regular basis I do, right? But again, you start not sleeping well, you have to be careful about it. But so I don't think I'm being there. I think 50% is I have a high tolerance of pressure. I like it. I coin this pressure is a privilege. I think I have chose this profession. It comes with pros and cons. And you cannot just complain when you have the cons. Right, and I think it's part of the journey, right? And in that sense, yeah, there is 2 or 3 times you're like really preoccupied about your personal finances or your family finances, the company finances, but most of the time, say, hey, there is a way out, right? And let's work on what you can change. Usually, it works well out, right? But I have high resilience. That I have to admit, I have a high resilience for pressure.
You mentioned failure and the importance of communicating it and living it and learning from it. So what was your biggest career fail?
Well, my first failure is a divorce, right? My first marriage, and I think means at some point I gave up of working. I'm probably,
But the statistics are on your side.
Yeah, but it's the market killed me. Doesn't matter. It's you. You don't care about the market, right? So I think that is, and you need to learn that for the next relationship. I think I did a very large project. Actually, I always kind of go back and said, hey, the typical, would you change something if you go back, right? And 90% of the time you said, no, I will not change anything because that's how I learned the most. But it's true, there was one project that I was doing in Denmark, in Telenor, in one of the telco operators, in between my 2 startups, actually. It was a super large project, 1 billion project, etc. I was coming from the Baltics, and I went to the Nordics. And I said, okay, this is going to be the same culture, just with more money, right? And I failed to assess the culture of the country of the company. And it's true that nobody make an effort. Actually, funny enough, the CEO was Czech. So we used to work together. And I think neither of us was properly trained on the business culture of the country and of the company.
And what was different?
For example, I think to me the biggest difference was if I promise the moon, or if I promise going to Mars and I get to moon, that's good. For them, if you promise to go to Brno and you get to Brno, it's fantastic. Say, but I promised you to get to Moscow and we're already in Kiev. No, but you promised Moscow. You didn't get there, right? So for them, it was much better to get to 2, promise 2, than get to 8, promising 14, right? And to me, that was like, what? So we really created a super ambitious project and we maybe got 70% of it, right? That was a failure.
Yeah,
and I think I should have started way smaller, get confidence, and then go to the bigger, and then get confidence. And I think that was very much Scandinavia. That was very much also the company that we were working with. So that to me was always like, man, I would love to have repeated that project. And I started, and I knew exactly which project would have been the first one, etc. But again, it was just lack of nobody educated us there. Of course, you accept I could have done a bit more of an effort and make less hypotheses, but it would have saved the company lots of millions, even if we saved still a lot of them, if they would have done one. So I think that is probably, which also told me afterwards, really work on the culture, really make sure that when you come into a company, you invest enough time. And this is why I start talking a lot about business culture in startups, etc. As I saw, this is the fundamental pillar to be able to afterwards be successful. So you need to invest a lot of time on it and don't make any assumptions. And in a startup, build the one you like in a way, right? So build the working place that you want this to be on the long run. Don't let it happen on its own, right? Because if you don't design it, it will design on its own. Right? So I think that was kind of the biggest
But it's
learnings.
a tough school, but you have to learn this when you want to invest in all over the world, right?
Yeah, but I think there is, it does... part of your investment thesis and your value proposition. I think that's part of what you preach and what you coach. And I think when people come in contact with us, they realize, wow, these guys are very different, but at the end of the day, they're all very similar in several ways, right? And it feels that, you come in and you know if you like this place or not. And to me, it's always I say, create a place that is not like for everyone. It's for a very particular set of individuals, but those there feel this is the best place I could ever be, right? This is the place that will take me to the next level. And I think a lot of the youngest come in, say, I want to be CEO tomorrow. And after 6 months, 12 months, they leave. And then 2-3 years later, they said, wow, no, I want to be back. Or that was a very special place, but they need to compare. They don't know how to compare, right? So you need to allow them also the freedom. Hey, that's okay. Just go and test other things,
And did you take this under your skin? Like, do not promise Mars, promise Brno and go to Brno?
Not in the company. I still believe in the big visions. But I like to explain why. I think the one thing that I believe I have improved, is on explaining the why I think we can be the largest boutique accelerator in the world, why it's important this for each one of you, etc. But I also, I have at some point in the company there was 80% female in the team, and for them being the top, it was we're going to be the top 3 in the world. I realized they don't give a shit about what being the top. Being the top of something is not something meaningful for them, right? So they're constantly thinking, how can you articulate your vision so it's meaningful for everybody in your team, right? So I don't think it's about making the vision smaller. I think you still need to be the guy who comes with the big dream and the big direction. But I think you need to explain why is this relevant for them, right? And why is in there for them to achieve this one and evolve it, right? And because it will be different from the different individuals or groups in your company, right?
You mentioned a couple of times eating well in this podcast. And so my last question stand to be, is what is the weirdest food you've ever eaten? And don't say McDonald's.
No. I wouldn't say that I have eaten something like a strange animal or something like that. I think it's always when you're combining something very sweet with something very sour, something that you have never seen combined before, right? I don't know.
Like pineapple on pizza?
Yeah, no. We have a joke because we have half of the Italians, so we always have, actually, when everybody enters the company and they do this little improv intro, so everybody's going to ask them, do you put pineapple pizza? Because 50% of people will hate you, 50% will love you, right? So we have a very wide team. No, I will say, for example, just to give an example. In Spain, there is this spread that is now actually with pork and paprika. In Spain, there is a very traditional place that they do this one and they put honey on top, right? We said...
Pork with honey?
Yes, we said pork with honey on a toast. That sounds really strange. So to me, it's this kind of combinations, which is one of the things that I replicate on my cooking, which is test new things, put the unexpected together. Sometimes will fail dramatically. Sometimes will be the most surprising things that you actually can offer to people, right? So to me, in the food, it's the same thing, right? It's not about, I put some kind of worm in the food, but it's about how can you combine things that people is not combining before, that they haven't thought about it. Again, is that surprise people? And done properly, I think it becomes, but you have to experiment. Without experimenting, you're always going to cook boringly. So I think the same applies to everything, right? Yeah,
experiment and put unexpected together in work, in your private life, and when you're cooking. It's a lovely ending. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Spice your life.
Spice your life.
Nobody's going to do it for you. Spice your life. That way you're going to keep yourself really going and going and going. Again, it's work, but spice up your life and respect your life. And I think those two things together make a very powerful combination.
Thank you, Cristobal, for being here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.